Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I got to chat with John Hoogenakker. He plays Matisse, a field operator who gives John Krasinski's Jack Ryan some quick lessons in how to survive a war zone. You might also know him as the Bud Light King, so dilly dilly. We had a great chat about learning to watch his six, the best things he's picked up playing a soldier on screen, and what it was like to turn 40 on the set of a show. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, Les, how's it going, man?
Going great. Man, thanks for taking the time today to talk to me about it. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the interest.
So you are now playing Mattis on Amazon's Jack Ryan. Can you talk a bit about the audition for the role and getting the part?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So they say we pronounce it Matisse, by the way.
I apologize.
Yeah, I'd driven in, and I just basically had a doctor's appointment that day and had a clean bill of health. And so, you get a little bit older in life, and clean bill of health kind of puts you in a good headspace.
I feel you.
So
I just turned 40 this year.
Yeah, exactly. It was like right in that. I was at that point I was 39. But I have a cool story about turning 40 on set that I can tell you later if you like. But I go in, and I played Matisse kind of as a guy from North Carolina, where I'm from, dude who you probably would have been hunting with, or just a bro, and didn't really put any like spin on him, didn't make him like hardcore or evil or intense or anything like that, and kind of just had fun with it. The scene I read for was a scene where I'm basically giving Jack some pointers on how to chamber around and giving him some advice on like not, watching his muzzle awareness when I'm downrange so that I don't get shot in the tush or anything like that. Just kind of had fun with it. And then, they responded favorably to it.
Am I remembering that scene right? Is that the one where Krasinski then just takes the gun and clearly knows what he's doing with it?
That's the one.
Something that struck me about your character when I started watching the show was that, like you said, I almost expected this guy to be the kind of one-dimensional hard ass, just to be dead serious about everything all the time. And instead, I got this guy that clearly lives there. It's a dangerous world, but this is your commute. This is your day job. This is where you go. And I'm thinking specifically about the, hey man, you want a Fanta? You're a human being that is doing this job, rather than a character who is just this job with no humanity behind him. Can you talk a bit about the balance between wanting to play a role versus the amount of training and getting gun handling right and getting military moves right? What was it like to find the balance between training to do a professional job on screen versus wanting to make sure that your character really came through?
Oh, that's a great question. And I've gotten to mention my buddy Kevin Kent several times in talking about that particular aspect of the role. His last name, by the way, is Kent, and he's our technical advisor. Kevin, I want to say Kevin joined the Navy at he joined right at 18, like right around the time he turned 18. He's only a few years older than I am. And he went right into BUD/S. And, went on to spend the next like 20 years of his life as a SEAL. And in that first season, he brought in several of his friends from the teams to help advise and also be on the teams that you see sort of raiding Suleiman's compound.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about an even mix. If you're looking at people clearing the compound and they're not saying anything, they were either our technical advisors who were past team members, or they were our amazing stunt performers, all of whom came from Romania for the job. And what that lent was, it's not enough to say it was just an air of authenticity, because these guys had, they'd known each other, most of them, on and off since they were young men. And they had lived for a couple decades in periods of extreme pressure. And they were committed to one another and committed to the team. And they also spent 99.99% of their time busting each other's balls. And it was like, it was absolutely a blast. I mean, growing up as kind of a red-blooded American boy, I spent a lot of time in the woods kind of playing Army and watched a lot of Vietnam movies and that kind of thing. And to get to play a role like that under the watchful eye of a bunch of retired SEALs was like, getting to toss the ball around with the Yankees. I mean, these guys were absolutely the coolest guys you'd ever want to meet, the kindest and most giving guys you'd ever want to meet. But I think that they kind of snapped us into their world very quickly. And I think that the vibe that they gave off on set, I hope, found its way through to what we were doing on screen. And I think that it was the ease of their interactions with one another and their interactions with us that I hoped was where Matisse would live in terms of his worldview and wouldn't just be a dude just kind of fronting for the sake of looking hard, which I think, as a TV viewer, that always kind of, last thing you want is for your work to ring hollow. So that I'm glad to hear that it struck you in that way. That was certainly what I was going for. And I also feel like another thing that the show got was a fully fleshed out portrayal of people on both ends of this sort of global story that we're telling in this first year. I think Ali, who plays Suleiman, he ended up being, over the course of that year, one of my other closest friends from the whole first year, and just getting to spend time with him and listen to his worldview and see the work that he was doing in this show. I think he did an absolutely wonderful job, and I thought that he was given the gift of a fully dimensional character to bring to life.
Yeah, I would agree. You find yourself understanding why this man is doing the things he's doing, even if you don't, by any stretch agree with his tactics. When you've seen him as a boy, you know where he came from. I was very happy to see how many aspects the show really covered so well. It gets that bureaucracy frustration with Wendell Pierce's character. You get Jack Ryan naive and new out in the field a little bit, dealing with his own past trauma. Beyond just the, watch your six and muzzle awareness, was there anything in particular that you felt like you took from Kevin about how they behaved or that, that ball busting or that attitude, how these guys deal with that day job?
Well, I think that on numerous occasions, when you're playing these scenes, it can be sort of, I guess the trap that you can fall into is wanting to run into a space too quickly. And what they would always kind of remind us to do is to sort of breathe and be aware of our surroundings and not, I'm trying to remember the actual quote that they use. I hesitate to give it to you because I'm afraid I'm going to misquote them. But basically it was like, smooth is fast, fast is smooth. So you want to make sure that you're covering off all your bases before you move fully into a room, that there is a technique. I mean, we also had to kind of relearn how to hold a rifle when you're clearing a room. For instance, typically, when I was a kid and we were playing, or when I've practiced with rifles in the past, you always sort of tilt your body off at an angle so that your side flank is exposed to the target that you're shooting at.
Mm-hmm.
The teams don't do that because they wear body armor, and that side flank is one of the portions of the body armor that is unarmored.
Yeah, it would be suddenly the opposite of what you'd want to do.
Exactly. So you would be walking into it basically face forward. I also, just got to talk to Kevin a whole lot about, about his worldview and about. It was an amazing experience because I was spending my time with a lot of guys who had spent their entire lives, spent a great deal of their lives fighting in that part of the world where we were filming.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my friends on set were men who had come from that part of the world and been affected by fighting in that part of the world. So it was an amazing experience for me as an actor and as a human being. It was really expanded my worldview in a lot of good ways. I think the more we get to travel and the more we get to encounter other people that otherwise we might not be able to, the more we have the opportunity to grow.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely love traveling. It's my wife and I always say it's the thing worth spending money on. And it's expensive, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
You had said you turned 40 on set. Were you in Morocco when you turned 40, or where were y'all shooting?
Well, it was literally at that point, I had done the vast majority of the work that I was going to do in Montreal, and I was back home, and my birthday is the 23rd of April, and we got a call, I want to say the 18th or 19th, and my wife had been, I know now, she'd been planning a surprise party and all this stuff, and we have two children, and they were both very excited to celebrate the birthday because they knew it was a big one. And I got the call that they literally were like, "Hey man, we want to fly you up to Montreal. We're just going to film for one day, and then we'll fly you right back." I was like, "What's the day?" "Well, we're going to fly you up on the 22nd. You're going to shoot on the 23rd, and we'll fly you right back on the 24th. Is that cool?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome!" Because the gig is the gig, and you're blessed to be doing the job. So I fly out there, and we're shooting on this small airfield near Montreal. It's not the major Montreal airport, and I'm walking past hair and makeup, and Wendell's coming out, and he's like, "Hey man, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy day. I turned 40 today." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a great gift to be out here on my birthday." And he was like, "Oh man." And then a little bit later, we were on a break prior to lunch, and John called me over. He was like, "Hey dude, Wendell just told me it was your birthday." I was like, "Yeah, dude, what a present to get to be able to do a job like this on your birthday." He was like, "Dude, check this out." And a buddy came over with a bottle of Basil Hayden in the wood box, and he and Wendell had both signed it with their character names and their names. And that night, John and Wendell took me out to a speakeasy in Montreal, and we partied good and proper. It was a great night. And then when I came home, my wife and all my amazing friends had completely unbeknownst to me, changed the location and the time of their surprise party, so it all worked out.
That's great. That is great. I was just going to ask, did that cause you to screw up the surprise party? But no, they got to shift it. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, my wife is so incredibly supportive and laid back about that stuff. We're very lucky.
I wanted to ask. I think I scheduled this interview, and almost immediately Florence hit. Is your family all still in the Carolinas? Yeah,
we're in Charlotte. We got Florence kind of skirted to the south of Charlotte, so they got a lot of water, and there were certainly some downed trees, but we did not get it as badly as Wilmington did and some areas south of us. When I was a kid, we got nailed by Hurricane Hugo. That was the big one when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And we were without power for a week and a half or so, maybe 2 weeks. We were out of school for a long time. It was, but it was one of those experiences where you kind of, nowadays, you feel like if we lost power, that it would devolve into chaos very quickly.
Yeah.
But I kind of still think that there's got to be an innate goodness and an innate willingness for people to help each other out, because that was certainly what happened in Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely felt that just recently in Houston. I'm from Texas, and yeah, sometimes it's nice to be reminded that
you guys have been through it.
Yeah, it's good to be reminded that people are not as bad as you sometimes think they can be. I wanted to ask if you, being promoted to a series regular for season 2, I know from talking to actors that a lot of times people don't realize that the gig is going on auditions and making sure that you're ready and making sure that you're always going for the next job and showing up where your agent says. Has it been odd here now to shift to a steady show? Has that changed up your schedule from what you're used to?
Well, the last year and a half almost, I've been bouncing from. I kind of went from doing Jack Ryan right into doing a show called Colony, which is on the USA Network, and that was up in Vancouver, and I did that for on and off for about 5 months, and then I kind of had a little bit of downtime, and went right back into Jack Ryan, and I think that I do kind of, a part of me, believe it or not, yearns for that part of the gig, which is the continuing to read for stuff and continuing to be able to show people different aspects of what you can do, different parts of your own humanity. But yeah, and I'm probably going to be jumping right back into that now. It looks like at this point I'm going to be doing a theater gig here in Chicago, which I'm pretty excited about because I feel like I always get sharper as an actor when I'm coming right off of a stage show.
Do you mind me asking what
holding
play?
That much? Yes, we're doing. These guys that I met when I was in my early 20s, they do hip hop adaptations of Shakespearean plays.
Okay.
And the first show that we did together was the Comedy of Errors. We did a show called The Comedy of Errors. And they had run it. They came out of Tisch at NYU, and they did it. And they ran it off Broadway for, I want to say, like 8 months. They had a really successful run, and then they came to Chicago, and one of the original guys was moving on to do something else, and I came in and got to play with the rest of the originals. Then we did it again about a year or so later at Chicago Shakespeare, and Chicago Shakespeare has continued to produce new productions with them going forward, and they do a version of the Christmas Carol, which is hilarious. And my buddy Gregory Caillou, GQ, plays Scrooge, and he's got to step back for a couple weeks, so I'm going to step in and take his place for a couple weeks.
That's great. I know you've done some really prominent stage work. Iceman Cometh with Dennehy and Nathan Lane, and you've played Hamlet. Is there something that you feel is more exciting or more immediate about stage work? Does it feel different for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd say it absolutely feels different, but I would also say that I've heard a lot of theater people say that they believe that film actors can't very easily make the transition to doing theater because theater is so incredibly hard and so very immediate. And I think, there's definitely an aspect of that might have some truth to it, but I think that as a guy who has spent a good deal of his life doing theater, I have to say that there's a certain immediacy that's required in doing film and television that perhaps actors who are more focused on theater aren't aware of, which is you have to have the entire arc of the story in your brain, and you have to be able to access any single point in that arc at any given moment throughout production. And you may, Michael Caine says you have to memorize your entire role before you even step on set for that reason. Mm-hmm. And being able to, our first day, without giving too much away, this second season of Jack Ryan started filming this late summer in Europe and the United States and in South America, and a lot of my work was in South America. And our first day on set was basically running around in a jungle with full battle gear on. And we were hitting it for, I want to say, 15, 16 hours before we called it a day. Now, as any veteran will point out, our packs were not 30 or 40 pounds, and our weapons, the barrels were blocked on them, and the stakes weren't real. But as an actor and as a person who's done manual labor in my life, that's the closest I've ever come to doing manual labor as an actor. And I think, I'm so glad I got to do it. It was so exciting, such a blessing to get to do that.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me about it today. I really appreciate it. I'm enjoying the series so far, and just can't wait to see it go further. I'm glad it got continued on.
Great, thanks, Les. Yeah, me too, man. I hope you enjoy the whole series. I hope you dig the next one too. I'm sure you will.
Yeah. Thanks again, John. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, man. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.